Ancient African civilizations that shaped the world. Long before the Western world began to write its story in stone, parchment, and empire, the vast and diverse continent of Africa had already carved its name into the bedrock of civilization. Its rivers had already whispered secrets of creation. Its people had built cities that touched the sky and philosophies that stretched across time. But history, as it is often told, has overlooked these truths. It has forgotten the thrones of the Nile, the wealth of the Sahara, and the scholars who studied the stars under the African sun. Yet, even silence cannot bury brilliance. From the golden kingdoms of West Africa to the monumental wonders of the Nile Valley, Africa's ancient civilizations not only shaped the continent, they helped shape the world. Among the oldest and most influential civilizations was Kemet, known today as ancient Egypt. But to call it merely Egypt is to strip it of its African soul. Kemet, which means the Black Land, was named not for the color of its people, as many later tried to obscure, but for the rich, dark soil left by the annual flooding of the Nile. This fertile land birthed one of the most advanced societies in human history. Its people constructed architectural wonders that still defy time and explanation: the pyramids of Giza, the Sphinx, the temples of Karnak and Luxor. These structures were not built by slaves, as once falsely taught, but by a highly organized society of skilled laborers, engineers, astronomers, and artists. Kemet was a beacon of science, mathematics, medicine, and spiritual philosophy. Its priests charted the heavens with uncanny precision. Its doctors performed surgeries and understood the circulatory system millennia before Europe would grasp such knowledge. The civilization of Kemet left behind hieroglyphic writings that recorded not only history and myth, but also detailed records of economics, governance, and astronomy. For over 3,000 years, this African powerhouse influenced cultures across the Mediterranean and beyond, laying foundations for future empires that would borrow, mimic, and often claim its genius as their own. South of Kemet, down the life-giving Nile, rose the powerful kingdom of Nubia. Known to its own people as Tarseti and later as Kush, Nubia was both a partner and rival to ancient Egypt. The Nubians were masters of archery, metallurgy, and trade. They built their own pyramids, more numerous than those of Egypt, at Meroe, the capital of a thriving Nubian empire. These structures, smaller but steeply angled, reflect a distinctly African aesthetic, separate from the more famous Egyptian style, yet equally commanding in presence. The Nubians ruled Egypt as pharaohs during the 25th dynasty, a period known as the era of the Black Pharaohs. Under their leadership, Egypt experienced a renaissance of art, culture, and religious devotion. Nubia's queens, known as Candakes or Candaces, were formidable in diplomacy and warfare, leading armies and resisting Roman invasion with unmatched bravery. Far from being a mere shadow of Egypt, Nubia had its own language, gods, and systems of power. Its legacy tells us that the Nile Valley was not a tale of one great civilization, but of many interconnected African powers shaping and reshaping the region across centuries. As the Nile wound its way eastward toward the Horn of Africa, another great civilization emerged, the Kingdom of Axum. Flourishing in what is now northern Ethiopia and Eritrea, Axum was one of the most powerful empires of the ancient world. By the first few centuries AD, Axum had become a major trading nation, its reach stretching from the heart of Africa to the Arabian Peninsula, India, and even the Mediterranean. Greek historians ranked it among the world's 4 great empires, alongside Rome, Persia, and China. Axum's most enduring legacy may be its adoption of Christianity in the 4th century, making it one of the earliest Christian kingdoms in the world. Long before Europe's conversion, the kings of Axum were carving crosses into stone and building rock-hewn churches that still stand today, sacred and weathered by time. The kingdom minted its own gold coins, bore its own unique script known as Dizi, and built massive obelisks that stood as silent sentinels of its power and sophistication. One of these, the obelisk of Axum, towers at 24 meters tall, a feat of engineering and symbolism that rivals any ancient monument. But Axum was not only a kingdom of stone, it was also a cradle of spiritual endurance, giving rise to the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, a uniquely African expression of Christianity that continues to thrive, untouched by Roman papal authority. Axum's existence proves that Africa was not merely reacting to global history, it was actively shaping it. Far to the south, beyond the Sahara and the savannas, nestled in the rugged terrain of southern Africa, rose the stone city of Great Zimbabwe. Its very name, Zimbabwe, means House of Stone in the Shona language, and it lives up to that title. From the 11th to the 15th centuries, Great Zimbabwe served as the capital of a vast kingdom that controlled trade routes stretching across the continent. Its rulers grew wealthy from gold and ivory, which they traded with Swahili merchants along the East African coast, and through them, with Arabia, Persia, India, and China. The great enclosures of Zimbabwe, some with walls reaching 11 meters in height, were built without mortar, just stone upon stone, fitted so precisely that they still stand centuries later. European explorers, upon discovering these ruins, could not believe that Africans had built them. So they invented myths, that they must have been constructed by foreigners, Arabs, Phoenicians, even lost tribes of Israel, anyone but the Africans themselves. But archaeology tells a different story. The people of Great Zimbabwe were master builders, traders, and political organizers. Their civilization was not isolated but interconnected, proving that southern Africa, too, had its place in the global network of human advancement. West Africa tells another chapter in Africa's legacy, one of gold, learning, and empire. The Mali Empire, which rose in the 13th century, became one of the richest and most powerful states in the world. Its most famous ruler, Mansa Musa, is often considered the wealthiest individual in history. During his pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324, Musa passed through Cairo, distributing so much gold that he reportedly caused inflation for over a decade. But Mali was not just a kingdom of material riches. It was a sanctuary of learning. The city of Timbuktu, under Mali's reign, became a center of Islamic scholarship, home to hundreds of schools and the legendary Sankore University. Scholars from across Africa and the Middle East came to study there, poring over manuscripts that explored theology, law, astronomy, medicine, and philosophy. More than 700,000 manuscripts survive to this day, hidden in private collections and dusty libraries, waiting to tell the world of an Africa that taught while others were still learning to read. The Mali Empire's system of governance, its military organization, and its cultural patronage laid the groundwork for successor states like Songhai, which would carry the torch of West African power into the 16th century. Before Mali, and alongside it in certain periods, another great civilization ruled North Africa with trade, strategy, and seafaring ambition, Carthage. Founded by Phoenician settlers around 814 BCE in what is now Tunisia, Carthage grew into a maritime superpower. Its navy ruled the western Mediterranean, and its wealth flowed from trade networks that spanned the ancient world. Though often remembered as the enemy of Rome in the Punic Wars, Carthage was far more than a rival. It was a center of innovation and culture. Carthaginian engineers pioneered shipbuilding techniques, and their merchants brought African goods, gold, ivory, dyes, and animals to distant shores. At its height, Carthage was a melting pot of African, Phoenician, and Berber cultures. Its most famous general, Hannibal, nearly brought Rome to its knees, crossing the Alps with elephants in one of the boldest military campaigns in history. Though Rome eventually destroyed Carthage in 146 BCE, the legacy of this African city-state endured. Its cultural influence shaped the Mediterranean for centuries, and its story remains a testament to African ingenuity, resilience, and ambition. These civilizations, Kemet, Nubia, Axum, Great Zimbabwe, Mali, and Carthage, represent only a fraction of Africa's ancient greatness. Each stood on its own terms, not as tributaries to European or Asian centers of power, but as civilizations in their own right, driven by African knowledge, African values, and African visions of the world. They built not just cities and armies, but systems of belief, science, and society that still echo in today's Africa and in the world beyond. Africa did not wait for the world to discover it. It discovered itself, built itself, and led itself. And though history tried to silence that truth, the stones still speak. The pyramids still stand. The manuscripts still whisper. The ruins of Zimbabwe still rise against the sky. And in every corner of the continent, the spirit of those ancient civilizations lives on, in language, in music, in tradition, and in the fire of a people who know where they come from. The story of Africa is not one of darkness waiting for light. It is a story of light, dimmed by time and distortion, but never extinguished. It is a story of a continent that helped shape the world, and will continue to shape it for generations to come.